All right, everyone. Ron DeSantis has made another big mistake. In fact, this is arguably bigger than his last mistake, and the last one was at least a half doozy. He has vetoed HB605, and the nuance behind this is pretty sheer. I don't even know what the hell he's doing at this point. He's gone batshit or something. In his haste to try to out-right-wing Trump, and I don't know why this would even be considered to be a conservative move. It sounds more like Biden's 1994 crime bill sort of mentality more than anything. He's now run up against virtually his entire state party, to the point where the person who sponsored this bill in the first place, who is a DeSantis fan and a Republican, by the way, is now saying that he might reconsider endorsing Ron DeSantis. I don't know what he's doing. You're down by more than 30 points in the presidential race. So unless Trump is killed or dies or something, you're probably not going to be nominee. I guess he's just waiting in the wings, hoping that he can eke out the nomination if Trump is officially disqualified for running, or the deep state shenanigans prevent him from actively being able to campaign or something. But you're going to look like a sleazebag engaging in unipartyist behavior at that point anyway, and can't possibly win a general election. I guarantee you more than half of MAGA will stay home or write in Trump anyway if Ron DeSantis at this point is the nominee, because of the situations in which he might find himself nominated. This bill, what it actually does, it was put forward by a Republican, a DeSantis ally. It was voted on by the Floridian House, this majority Republican. Only 2 people voted against it. It was voted through the Senate, majority Republican. It was a unanimous vote in the Floridian Senate. It has widespread bipartisan support. And when you get a bipartisan bill, one of 2 things is true. It's either really crap, so it's like the Patriot Act or something, or it's really, really good and people support it because, hey, the constituents like the idea. The people in Congress, even if they don't, they want their constituents to be happy, so they're fucking voting it through. What this bill would do is allow the expunging of criminal records for people, but only if they had been found not guilty, or if the charges against them had been dropped. So a person there are several statuses you can have in regards to the criminal system. The first step is you're not being investigated, nothing's going on, everything situation normal, all fucked up under Bidenomics. Or Florida economics. Apparently the cost of living is soaring out of sight there with regards to housing. The first thing that happens is you get investigated. Unless you have committed a crime in broad daylight in front of a cop or something, like you just stabbed a cop, you don't get arrested, right? You get investigated. Well, an investigation can be ongoing for some time, etc., etc., but you haven't been charged with anything. The second step is you've been detained. So they're detaining you, they're questioning you. Again, the investigation has gone somewhere. They're hauling you in for questioning. That does not mean guilt. You can be detained unlawfully. In many cases, this happens. You're just pulled in and they go on a fishing expedition, and if you got a competent lawyer, you might be able to beat those charges too. Then they have to charge you, and then they have to go through the trial process. Ron DeSantis vetoed a bill that would simply allow people to expunge records related to crimes for which there was not enough evidence for them in many cases to even be charged. They were detained, but they were never charged with anything. The charges were dropped because of a lack of evidence. The person went through a trial because they thought they had evidence, but a jury of their peers found them not guilty. I don't know what the hell could possibly be wrong with this bill. Read it. It's not going to let go of violent felons or anyone else. The people haven't been found guilty of any crime. But yet there's a record of purported criminality that's still available there for absolutely no reason. Now, I know some of the DeSantis fans, let me put this forward. I know that there are some of you on the channel. It's fine if you continue to support DeSantis, but please don't bother trying to simp for him on this particular move. This was a near unanimously supported GOP-sponsored bill that relates to people who in most cases have not committed any form of crime whatsoever. But there could be legal prejudice against them simply because an investigation or a trial ever occurred. We all know this. When a person is put on trial for a crime, the predisposition of the average Joe public is that they're guilty. It doesn't, unless the evidence is completely flabbergastingly bullshit, unless it is literally nothing more than a witch hunt, like with Trump's indictments, you could say, unless there's literally nothing and the prosecution happens to lack charisma, then the person will forever be considered guilty. In this political climate especially, and DeSantis should probably explain his thinking on this, in this hyper-politicized climate, is it not likely that a person, if there's any political overtures within the so-called crime they supposedly committed, that they get found not guilty for in these cases, would that not predisposition a chunk of the public to always proclaim that they're guilty simply out of political animus? So why shouldn't the record be expunged? It's not necessary for it to even exist at all. If the cops didn't even have probable enough cause to bring charges in the first place, or dropped them and didn't even go to trial, why the hell wouldn't you expunge the record? They already investigated the person. They found them to be not guilty. They didn't even need a jury to tell them that. They didn't need to go before a judge. I don't know what he's thinking. I guess the standard wisdom is that Ron DeSantis is trying to outright wing Donald Trump. Well, it's fine if you want to do that on something like taxes. Yeah, you'll get some applause for doing so. I would like Trump to have more beefy tax reform in mind. While his tax reform before was definitely helpful to me, I'd wish he'd gone further. For one thing, the child tax credit to spur on native-born citizens to have more kids should have been quadrupled instead of just doubled. After all, it's been a while since that was increased, and due to Bidenomics, if Trump gets back in there again, he'll have to quadruple it just to break even, by the way. I would have liked to have seen more of a self-employment write-off. Hell, you should get rid of the self-employment tax altogether because it's strangulating entrepreneurs. There were some people that fell through the cracks, especially people who wrote off things. They're a sole proprietor. They have to purchase like a truck for their workers. They're a mechanic. They fell through the cracks. Admittedly, about 5% of the working and middle class, a small number, but several million people, did get screwed under the tax reform. They did fall through the cracks. Everyone else, by and large, they had their taxes reduced. And those people did get a bracket reduction, but it doesn't necessarily offset when you have a high cost of the various tools that you have to do to go. You're a plumber or a carpenter or something. Yeah, Trump's tax reform didn't positively impact every American, just most of them. It was a good tax bill, but I'd like to see him go further. If you want to propose tax reform, and I don't mean the national sales tax, which is a crazy idea. If you want to propose more meaningful reform of that, it's fine. If you want to out-conservative Trump on some moral issue, well, I may not agree with you, but it would be in lockstep with the neocon that Ron DeSantis is quickly showing that he is. That's fine. If you want to go full Jesus and compare the number of hours that you've spent in church to those that Donald Trump has, that's okay. It'd be funny to me. It'd be amusing more than anything. Trying to outright wing on crime, though, while proposing more statism, which is quite literally what you're doing, more legalism, more top-down, court-heavy, legalistic bullshit, how is that conservative? Retaining a bunch of info related to a person who is found not guilty? By the way, DeSantis had formerly, a couple of years ago, vetoed a similar bill proposed by the same Republican DeSantis supporter in Florida in their legislature with regards to juvenile records. Of course, in general, if you've committed a crime when you're 12 and you spent some time in juvie, once you're 18, that can get expunged with regards to most crimes. And DeSantis vetoed that first bill, then inserted a rider in, effectively saying, but it doesn't apply to certain violent felonies, which it kind of makes sense. You can establish a pattern of behavior. A violent felon is a different class of animal from, hey, I stole some gum. Hey, I burglarized a house because I was 13 and I was fucking stupid and I was around a bunch of druggies or something. I agree with DeSantis on that, but I mean, you're poking the bear and you're going to lose an endorsement possibly over this. Vetoing a bill that's going to pass without your signature anyway because it was near unanimously supported. They're going to override your veto and make you look weak. And now it's going to become national news because you're in the presidential running. I don't know what DeSantis is doing with this one. There's no strategy involved. Simply moving to the far right is not going to help you beat the Big Don. No, Big Don, he's also come out against Trump's First Steps Act, which only involves nonviolent criminals anyway, who had been unjustly treated, arguably their constitutional rights deprived from them, in a select number of federal cases only, by the way. because nonviolent crimes mounted, and then because of people like Joe Biden, ironically, and Kamala Harris instituting tough-on-crime legislation, a person who was found guilty of possession a few times all of a sudden finds themselves with a 15-year sentence, which makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. It's moralism, it's drug warriorism, it's authoritarianism. Ron DeSantis is acting like an authoritarian here. And he's also acting goddamn fucking batshit because he knows that it's going to end up being, his veto is going to be overridden. So I don't know what the hell he seeks to accomplish with this. He's certainly pissing away support in Florida. The public vastly supports the bill. The Congress there overwhelmingly supported it. Again, in both chambers, a total of 2 people voted against it. Out of all of the people in the House and the Senate, it was unanimous in the Florida Senate. It's run by Republicans. DeSantis, what are you fucking doing? I would like some DeSantis fans to explain to me how they can possibly defend his action on this one. That's about all. Peace out.